Greetings. I'm Ramiro Salazar, Director of the San Antonio Public Library. I want to welcome you to the San Antonio Public Library's first ever virtual Pop Madness. Of course, because of COVID-19, this year's Pop Madness is being brought to you virtually. We're excited that we have a very special author, Kate DiCamillo, a Newberry Award winning author, is part of our program for this year. So thank you for your participation in this event, and please enjoy the program.
Hello, and thank you all.
Hello.
Before we officially get started, I just want to go over some shopkeeping things. As you enter, your video is automatically turned off and you're automatically muted, and that is to help with our bandwidth for the program. The chat is open. We just ask that you please be respectful with the comments and the questions that you place in there, because if not, you will be removed from the program. So let's officially, we also have Elisa and Elizabeth from Deaf Interpreter Services here today doing our sign language for our program. Let's officially get started. Welcome to All Things Flora and Ulysses with Kate DiCamillo. My name is Ashley Stubbs, and I'm a children's librarian with the San Antonio Public Library. And with me is my colleague.
Hello, I'm Mary Elizabeth. I'm so happy to be here, especially with Ms. Kate DiCamillo. And we'd love to hear everything you have to say.
You just want me to talk, right? That's
Sure.
what you think right now, right? So I just thought I'm going to hold up the movie tie-in edition of Flora and Ulysses. So I thought I'd talk some about where I came up with the idea for the book, and then a little bit about the movie, and then I'm hoping that some of the participants might have questions, because I love to do Q&A. So is everybody good with that idea?
Yes, absolutely. If anybody has questions, please put it in the chat and we will get to as many of them as we can.
Right. So this book, which is about a girl and a squirrel, is all began for me with a vacuum cleaner and my mother. So my mom passed away in 2009, and in the last year of her life, she would say to me all the time, "What's going to happen to the vacuum cleaner when I'm gone? Who will take the vacuum cleaner?" And I would always say, "Why are you worried about the vacuum cleaner? I promise you, I will take the vacuum cleaner. I'll give it a good home when you're gone." And she says, "It's just such a great vacuum cleaner. It's just like it's got all these extensions, and it's the retractable cord." She just loved vacuum cleaner. So when my mom did pass away, I did as I promised I would do, and I took the vacuum cleaner. But the only thing is that my mom had a cat, really truly the world's most evil cat, named Mildew. And I am allergic to cats. And so when I got this vacuum cleaner from my mother, the whole thing was just filled with cat dander, and I couldn't bring it into the house. So I put the vacuum cleaner in the garage, and then every time I pulled into the garage, I would see the vacuum cleaner, and it would make my heart hurt. It would make me miss my mother. So that's part one of where the story came from, my mother and the vacuum cleaner. And part two is the squirrel. So the spring after my mother passed away in January, and then in spring of that year, there was this squirrel who was on the front steps of my house, kind of draped dramatically across the steps, and very, very unwell. He wasn't bleeding, but he would let me get really close to him, and so I knew that something was wrong, and I didn't know what to do for him. And so what I did was I called one of my best friends, who lives a block away, and she is really the kindest and gentlest of all of my friends. But I'm not going to tell you her name because she's asked me not to, because you'll see what happens here. So I call her up and I say, "There's a squirrel who is dying on my front steps and I don't know what to do for him. can you help? And she said, do you have a shovel? I said, yeah, I have a shovel. She said, an old t-shirt? I said, yeah, I have an old t-shirt. She said, get the shovel, get the t-shirt, and I will come over there and whack him over the head. That's what she said.
Oh my God.
And it was just like, it was horrifying to me. And clearly it was horrifying to the squirrel too, because I was standing outside very close to him when this conversation went on. And like he must have heard, because when I went around the house and looked out the front window, he was gone. The squirrel thought, no, not me. There are better ways to leave the world than an old t-shirt and a shovel over the head. So all of that made me think of, there's this great essay by E.B. White called Death of a Pig. And it also made me think about when E.B. White wrote Charlotte's Web, in the promotional material for Harper that came out right before the book. He talked about one day he was going to feed the pig, and he was trying to think about ways to save the pig's life. And so I started to think about ways to save a squirrel's life. And because there's something strange about my brain, I combined the need to save the squirrel with the vacuum cleaner that was in the garage. And I put those two things together. And what I came up with was this story where the squirrel gets sucked up in the vacuum cleaner, and in the course of being vacuumed almost to death, turns into a superhero. So he's strong, he can fly, and he also writes poetry, just like every good superhero. So that's where the story came from for me. Are there any questions at that point? It seems like that took a long time to tell, but you guys did a good job of looking interested as I was saying it. I can't see everybody else, but you guys look interested. So are there any questions now before I talk about the movie? Or?
There are some questions. One of them was, why a squirrel? So you answered that.
You answered
that. and also why squirrel? The other thing is, there's very much, there was for me this thing, because there was, as anybody knows who's lost somebody, there's this extended period of sadness, and that was the period when this book was written, was when I was grieving my mother, and the book, writing it was a way, I knew that she would laugh. We have the same sense of humor. I knew the book would make her laugh, and also it was a way to make myself laugh and to find my way back to joy through, from mourning her loss. So, and a squirrel just seemed like a really funny thing to me to be a superhero. So
there's another question. Was there any, while you're creating the squirrel's superpowers, was there any power that he had to absolutely have?
Well, I knew that he would have to have the traditional superpowers of being, I guess there aren't absolutely traditional ones, but like most superheroes can fly. And I wanted something that you would normally associate with superheroes. But what happened, and what happens for me a lot when I write, is that I didn't know, I was surprised by the fact that the squirrel was gonna write poetry. And I didn't intend that at all. It was one of those things that I get up early in the morning and do the writing before I do anything else. And so what happened was, several mornings in a row, I was just really, really surprised by the fact that here is the squirrel typing on Flora's mother's typewriter and typing out a poem. And I thought, wow, this can't happen. And then I thought, well, why not? Why not let it happen? And so it was not intentional. I didn't plan it out in advance, but I was delighted ultimately by the poems of the squirrel.
There's also a question about the characters that you've created. Like, how do you maintain all the characters you create? Or like, do you ever feel like you've created too many? How do you?
It's a good question. I mean, every once in a while, I keep a notebook with me all the time, where I keep ideas for stories, and also kind of like notes on what I'm working on and what I see in the world. And sometimes I will go to the back of the book where I keep a list of every of the books that I've written. And I think all of those characters, no one's ever really asked that before about like, do I worry that there are too many out there? But sometimes I'm overwhelmed by how many of them there are. And the other thing that happens is that particularly I think when you write books for kids, a lot of times people are like, whatever happened to that character? Are you not going to write a sequel? And so that I get that question a lot. And I was just thinking as I was talking about Ulysses and the poetry that, you know, as soon as this book came out, kids started saying, well, you know, we need more adventures with the squirrel. And I'm not typically somebody who does sequels, is not the way I think, but one little boy said to me at a signing, okay, I understand you're not going to do any more books about the squirrel, but I think that you probably have it in you to write a book of squirrel poetry. And I thought, that's a great idea. So that's right here in my notebook, that idea of like, wow, writing a book of squirrel poetry, that would be great. And a chance to revisit Ulysses too,
So do you ever like put a little bit of yourself in all of these different characters?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if anybody who's interested in writing, there's a piece of advice that you get all the time, which is write what you know. And I don't know what it's like to be a squirrel who writes poetry. So I'm always making things up. I'm not writing what I know, but what I find is no matter how different the character is, or whether the character is a squirrel or a dog or a mouse or a girl or a boy, one way or another, there is a part of me in every one of those characters. And the other thing that I find is that there's no way to tell a story without revealing yourself. You might think it's not about you, but once you're done, there are all kinds of things that reveal you. In order to tell a story really well, you have to kind of like lay your heart bare. And so you might think that you're not doing that, but you do that every time you write a story. So yeah, I'm in every character.
There's an interesting question. Did you write any stories as a child? Do you remember what they were about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do I remember? This is the thing is I'm old. So I'm 56. I actually have to think about it because it's like, how did I be 56? So I'm 56 years old. I grew up in a small town in Central Florida, and I was huge reader. That was how I made sense of the world and made sense of myself. It was just who I was. But books to me were so magical that I just didn't ever think that human beings had anything to do with them. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a writer when I grow up, because one, writers, writers didn't come to the library and do a visit. I didn't have school visits where it was just something that wasn't happening then, where writers didn't come into the classroom as much. And I never saw a writer at a bookstore. So I never thought, oh, I'm going to write a story and I'm going to write a book. It just never really occurred to me. So what I wrote when I was a kid, I'm a huge animal lover and a big dog lover. I wrote really bad poetry to the dog, and my mother saved a lot of that. And it wasn't until I got into college that I started to think, oh, I want to actually be a writer. But before that, I didn't write stories.
There's also, well, leading into the next question, or a question asked previously, is like, what is your writing process? How do you like select your ideas and get started? Do you just dive in, or do you have to like outline things?
Right. Yeah. And this is like, I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who write. And so the first thing that I always want to say about this is, if you're interested in doing it, here's the bad news and the good news. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is if you want to do it and you're not doing it, that's the only way to go wrong with it. But otherwise, it's finding out what works for you. And this is what works for me, which is that I don't outline. If I outline, I have no interest in telling the story. And it's just like I said with how Ulysses surprised me with the poetry. Um, I don't, I wouldn't be able to think of, oh, I'm going to come up with a squirrel who writes poetry. I discovered that by sitting down every morning and being with the squirrel and Flora. So for me, it doesn't work to outline. I have a lot of friends who write who do outline. I would never think of writing a novel without outlining, but I have an idea, a squirrel, a girl, a vacuum cleaner, or I see something that I think might turn into a story. I keep all of those things in the back of the notebook. And then when I sit down to write, I start with just that image. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I move very slowly. I get up and I do the writing first thing in the morning, and I do 2 pages a day for the first draft. So as soon as the 2 pages are up, and people will say, what if it's going really great? Don't you stay there? Nope, I don't. I get up. I never want to do it. I'm always glad when I did it. And so I do 2 pages a day. And when I have a draft, then I print it up and I let it sit, and I come back and do another draft. And then I print that up and I let it sit, and I come back and do another draft. And I do that 8 or 9 times. And then I usually have something that I can send to my agent or my editor.
Right, that sounds like, because you can think about it and come back to fresh eyes. And
right. And when you let it sit for a while and you come back to it, you're not as close to it. It doesn't seem like it has as much. You can see what's lacking. And also there's this notion that if you're somebody who's supposed to write, there's this kind of this idea that adults and kids have that, well, if I'm supposed to do it, then I'll sit down and it will come out right the first time. And boy, that is not true. There's a wonderful book called Art and Fear. And they talk in there, the authors do, about how there's one Mozart born every century, one genius who hears the music and puts it down. And then they say, guess what? That's not you. So if you want to make any kind of art, you have to be willing to do multiple drafts, make lots of mistakes, and you just have to keep on showing up and doing the work of it.
Yeah. So when you're out and about, do you have to have like a notepad and a pencil in case an idea pops into your head?
I do. I don't, everything has changed so much, right?
Right.
Now out and about just means that I'm out and about walking the dog in the neighborhood. And I don't take the notebook with me on those walks, but there are a lot of times I get back from those walks and I run directly to the notebook because there's something that I know that I can turn into a story. When I traveled all the time, I always had the notebook because traveling is great. What people say to each other, sometimes people will say to me, aren't you worried you're going to run out of things to write about? And I go, have you been on a city bus recently? Like if you get on any kind of public transportation and look at people and listen to them, there's just stories all over the place. And so I eavesdrop and it goes into the notebook. Yeah.
well, we're starting to also get some questions about the movie, like screenplay. Have you ever thought about writing a screenplay for one of your books?
My first book, Because of Winn-Dixie, became a movie, and I got to be a part of that, and I learned how to write a screenplay, and it was fascinating, and it also convinced me that what I should be doing is writing books. And so what happened with Flora and Ulysses was that I got to read the script that Brad Copeland did, and I thought it was fantastic. And then I got to go to the set and watch them work. That was summer before last. And I also got to make a cameo in the movie, which was all really, really fun. So it's just like, that's what I like to be a fly on the wall as they make the movie, but boy, I should be writing the books. I feel like that's what I'm better at. Yeah.
Right. Tried it, don't like it.
It's hard. It's a totally different skill set, and it's really fascinating to learn it and to watch it, but it's also like I just know, okay, yeah, this is what I should be doing is writing books. So
When you transition the book into a movie, there's always something that has to, give or take, be left in, left out. What was the one thing that needed to be in this movie?
the squirrel.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Right. I mean, and it's so true because, this is, and again, when I'm talking to a room full of people and movies come up, I always like to ask this question. It's just like, how many of you as readers, when you're reading a book, you watch the whole thing unfold in your head like a movie? And uniformly across the board, 70% of the room, their hands go up. And that's what scientists say. It's like the great majority of us, when we're reading, we see it unfold like a movie. And so then I say, that means that we all have our own personal movie in our head when we're watching a book. So when somebody goes to turn a book into a movie, there are a couple things going on. One is they're making the movie that's in their head. And two, they're different art forms. What works in a book, and this goes back to me preferring to write books over screenplays. What works in a book is not necessarily narratively going to work in a movie. So you have to make changes just for the narrative form. And happily, there's this, with Flora and Ulysses, there's this wonderful thing, and this has come up a couple times. And when I did the press junket for the movie when it came out, where in many ways the movie has taken the themes of the book and deepened them and made them better. There are things that are better about the movie than about the book, and that is a rare and wonderful position to be in. So, and I was able to watch the movie like I had nothing to do with it. I just kind of watched it as an 8-year-old, utterly delighted, so. Have I talked too much? Yeah.
No. There are a lot of comments of how great and humble that is to say, and also how impactful your books are on emergent readers, and how you are able to maintain, how do you maintain an authentic voice in your characters?
That's I'm so glad that I have an authentic voice. How do I do it? I feel like it's a strange thing to say about when you're making up the story, just for instance, about a squirrel who gets sucked up into a vacuum cleaner and is turned into a superhero. It's strange to say, I feel like my job is to tell the truth, because, there's, it's a squirrel superhero, but it's just like when you're writing for kids, you have to tell the emotional truth. And I feel like that's a real, I when I was a kid, I could not stand somebody condescending to me. And I think that you have to not condescend. I'm telling the story that I wanted to read when I was 8 years old. And I'm trying to tell the truth and also to make the truth bearable. And the truth is, it's really hard to be a human being. And life is difficult, and the truth is also that it is beautiful, and that it is made more beautiful by connecting with other human beings and by opening our hearts. And so every book is an attempt to do that, to capture that truth. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And another really good question. Do you have a favorite character that you've created?
That's always so difficult for me to answer. And I say, generally my response is, it's like choosing a favorite kid. You can't do it. You love them equally, but differently. They're individuals. But if you absolutely made me, I would probably say Winn-Dixie, just because that dog, that was the first book, and something incredible happened where people opened their hearts to that book, and because of that, I got to write more stories, and everything that's happened to me as a writer has happened because of Winn-Dixie. So yeah, it's just, I'm so grateful that I get I get to do this work.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. It's kind of a cute one. Did you ever want Ulysses to talk?
Yeah, it's so funny when I was doing the press junk and somebody said, do you know that so-and-so did the voice of Ulysses in the movie? And I'm like, what? No, I didn't know. I didn't know there was even making those vocalizations that he makes which are not quite words as Flora says. That's not talking, but still. Yeah. As somebody who was writing the story, I loved it that he could talk through his actions and talk through the typewriter by writing the poetry. So that was enough for me. Yeah, it's a good question though.
If he ever did talk, what would be the first thing he'd say?
He would say, "I'm hungry."
Yeah.
Or cheese puffs.
Yeah.
That's what he would say. Yeah.
And then also some queries about future endeavors and
yeah, I've got a novel coming out in September of this year, and then I have some easy readers about a pig named Mercy Watson who lives on Decawoo Drive, and then also some books that are a step up from that about other characters on Decawoo Drive. And so I've got another Decawoo Drive book coming out this spring about Frank Endicott. So Franklin Endicott and the Third Key is the title of it, and that comes out this spring. And spring is coming.
Yes.
As unbelievable as that seems, spring is coming. So yeah.
it will be here.
It'll be here. This has been so much fun. So
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And you guys did such a good job of listening to me with your it's like I can see your faces and it helps. So thank you. Now I hear you guys are gonna watch the trailer, and
watch the trailer?
Yeah, stick around for that. And thank you for letting me join in.
Thank you so much for being here with us and answering our questions. We have such a audience that just loves your books and enjoys them so much.
Well, I'm so grateful to every reader out there. And can I just get on my soapbox for a minute and say, for every adult who reads to a child, thank you. You're changing lives. And for kids, if there's an adult that you feel like needs to be read to, that's a wonderful gift to give somebody, because adults need to hear stories too. So thank you. Thank
you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So those of you that are with us, we are going to show the movie trailer right now, and stick with us afterwards if you want to just chit chat about the movie and the book. So take it away. Here's the trailer.
Superheroes stand watch when danger closes in and save those in need. But they have one thing in common. They never show up in the real world. Until Ulysses. Every superhero comes to us with a purpose. We don't always see it at first, because we don't always know where to look.
Flora! What is this?
I am Ulysses, born anew. Wholly unanticipated occurrences! Did you type this? He's a superhero. What? Do you have any enemies?
I'm here about the squirrel.
Danger lurks everywhere.
Is he?
He's flying. There was a change in the air. And the world was filling with excitement.
Who's hungry? What now? Come on! Ulysses!
People looked to the skies for someone to save them. So the universe sent us Ulysses. Can you talk? Okay, that's not really talking, but still!
Awesome. Thank you to everybody that is still here with us. I don't know if anybody has seen the movie yet or just read the book. I mean, I thought it was amazing. I thought the transition from book to movie was awesome. I thought it was hilarious. I would like to know what y'all thought if y'all had saw the movie already. Do you have a chance to see the movie, Liz?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna see it tonight. I'm so excited. It looks so cute. I've seen that trailer like, I don't know, 1,000 times. I'm like, why don't I just watch the movie?
I think it's hilarious. Like, it's just so funny. And they added some new characters, and Mr. Klaus is so funny. Like, he's so animated in this movie.
Yeah, I like the two parents. Those actors have been funny characters, people that I've seen. So
Caroline saw the first 20 minutes, and it gets way more funnier after that. So I recommend seeing it. Thank you so much for joining us, Cheryl. I'm so glad you enjoyed our program. Oh, y'all can stick with us. I mean, I don't.
Is everyone's favorite DiCamillo book? I really like the Mercy Watson because of how the emergent readers really enjoy them. So they're really great go-to for those kids who are just starting to actually read on their own. So
I think
Dixie, yes, of course.
this one's my favorite, mainly because I'm a huge superhero fan, and the fact that this squirrel just has superpowers, I think that's awesome. Yeah, when Dixie is great. Oh, somebody loves I Love Miraculous Journey. I don't think I've ever read that one. I don't know that one.
I think I have it too. Nope, I don't. But yeah, there's more to explore. And she also has many picture books that are really good for just for the littles.
Another Flora and Ulysses from Imelda, and Tell of Despero. Oh yes, I love Tell of Despero. There's another. He's a hero. He's a hero. Not a superhero, but he's a hero. He's a knight in shiny little armor. Awesome. I mean that. I wonder if I was creating a superhero animal, if I would pick a squirrel. Like I thought a lot. Like
animal would I create? I don't know. The squirrel is really neat because they do have really awesome just natural abilities. They also land on all fours, and they're really resilient little creatures. But it's interesting that she did choose that squirrel. I know she had an inspiration for the squirrel, but
I don't know if that definitely would not have been my first choice.
Right.
And I think when I think cat, I automatically think villain. Like villain. Like,
you're a little jerk.
Can be a hero. Do y'all feel that way? What would be your superhero animal? Flora.
Yeah, Flora's a dog. Yeah, they are pretty good little creatures, huh?
Oh, Cheryl says her dog.
oh, just not just any dog.
Imelda says she can identify with Flora's nerdiness. I think, yep. She's had a really big vocabulary, and I love that. I think that's amazing. So, I mean, was there any graphic novels that y'all enjoyed that either before reading Flora and Ulysses or after reading Flora and Ulysses, you're like, I should read a graphic novel, a comic book, or something?
For me, I like those. Oh goodness! Of course, now I'm not going to remember. I think it's Penelope and her unicorn.
Those are cute.
Yeah, it's so much Calvin and Hobbes esque type of thing. It's really funny and cute.
I got into reading the Dragon Ball series.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Garfield. Yeah.
Oh, Garfield's always awesome. And he's another one that as soon as he talks, he's like, I'm hungry. Feed me. Right? I think him and Ulysses could be friends.
Yeah, I think he could put Garfield in his place, maybe.
I think Garfield could introduce Ulysses to all this wonderful food, like
Oh yeah. I
lasagna.
don't know if he would share his food though, but
Be like, you should try this, but get your own.
something to note for the future. Dogman.
Yes, Dogman.
Oh yeah, he is a hero of sorts.
Of sorts. The beginning of Dogman was interesting to me. how Dogman became Dogman. I was very like, whoa.
Right. I really like how, like it's just a weird concept. It's an interesting, like, how do they come up with this stuff? I don't know.
I did like how she doesn't just sit in front of a computer and just like,
Yeah.
Right. Like I couldn't do that.
Yeah, she gives herself time to step away and yeah, distance herself away, like she said. Yeah, that's really good thing to kind of just take into other aspects of when you're creating things or trying to write an email to somebody. Like, yeah, I think that's some good advice just to kind of take in general. Yeah, I really like that.
We still have people here with us.
Yeah, we have a good amount of people here with us. Thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
There is going to be a lot more to see with Pop Madness. Please go to the website. And there's
all the videos and
all the videos. Go to my SAPL on YouTube. We have videos up. Thank you. Yes. The Pop Madness. Oh, mysapl.org/Pop Madness. There's a lot going on. There's karaoke to go and do. It's yeah, we worked really hard even through all of the craziness. So please enjoy everything.
Thank you so much for attending.
And we have many online programs just in general going on. Thank you. Thank you for coming.